The story began with a woman wearing heavy makeup named Amamiya losing her mind the moment she heard that the fifth victim appeared and the killer followed the same style, so she yelled at those with her in the investigation to widen the perimeter quickly. Then she looked at Totomaru and told him to go back to sleep, while Totomaru tried to appear like a warrior who did not joke and told her it was normal to work 2 nights in a row and he did not care about fatigue. But Amamiya did not like that talk and told him coldly that his presence would actually hinder them. Then a man named Kiku came and showed some sympathy to this beaten detective and told him if he did not get results soon, he would fly out of the first investigation division. And they reminded him that he was judged 3 times before and let a criminal escape besides people complained about him when he went around at night taking testimonies from area residents. And Kiku liked in Totomaru that he was kind and his intentions were sound, but he said that kindness was what destroyed him in work. Then Totomaru got emotional and said people were terrified of the serial murders and he could not sit still while the old man appeared to be planning something when he licked his fingers strangely and said there were 5 victims and no progress, and the department could not take any more and only one person could solve the case. A clever one, but not a normal detective. So Totomaru went to his apartment and stood before his picture where he looked clean and respectable before, but now he was something else entirely. And the moment he rang the bell, he found a voice from inside telling him not to get excited, and when he rang again, the voice told him to do it himself. And Totomaru stood bewildered, and the voice got annoyed at him and told him to go back to the temple again and pray. So Totomaru wondered how he knew, and after an argument, this man opened the door and detonated the surprise that this man, who was supposed to be a genius, had hair like seaweed and looked messy from top to bottom, and his eyes were dead in the literal sense and did not even reflect light like fish eyes. And he entered the apartment without asking and saw the cat thrown down as if it was dead. But the man named Ron told him it was fine and told him that he was in the same school as Kiku's son, and he sat crying all day and did not deny the words suddenly. Ron hit his face on the ground, and Totomaru was terrified, but discovered the whole floor was pillows, and the man told him this was his lazy land, and he kept a daily schedule full of boredom and despair. And the man had neither mobile nor net nor TV and locked himself in and did not want to know anything about the world and said he reached the bottom of despair. So Totomaru tried to tell him that he needed him, but the man refused without even listening and confessed that Kiku sent many people before him to be his partners, and he rejected them all and hurt their pride a little. And finally he admitted he was not a detective at all. Now so Totomaru tried to tell him about the murders, but the man screamed loudly to not hear. So Totomaru kept nagging, and the man told him it was not his problem and looked like he did not intend to get up from this lazy land. So Totomaru was about to despair, and the man told him to go pray again, and Totomaru asked how he knew. And here, part of his genius appeared for the first time as he looked at Totomaru's shoulder and told him this was pine pollen, which only grew on one road by the temple and from the closed box in his pocket, and the change in the other pocket meant he broke money to throw a coin there. And naturally, Totomaru was shocked, but the genius did not stop and told him from his way of speaking and movements that he was raised by his grandfather and grandmother and was terrified of dismissal, and that was the reason he came to him. So Totomaru was convinced this man, no matter how psychologically dead, could solve the case, but the man refused and refused. So Totomaru suddenly made a genius move himself and screamed loudly with the case details to force him to hear, but found the man wearing earplugs, and Totomaru begged him until a call came from work, and then Ron removed the plugs and yelled at him, saying, "Do not answer here." But the boss Amamiya already told him on the phone that there was a 6th victim, and as soon as they arrived there, they found the body was in Shibuya Park, and Totomaru was the closest, so he pulled Ron to go investigate. And Totomaru was about to leave, but was shocked when he found something strange happening to Ron. As Ron told him, as soon as he heard about a case, his body could not stop him, and he had to investigate it in any way. But he could not solve cases again, and said also that this job was what gave him meaning to life, and without it, he felt he would go crazy. And that was why he cut himself off from the world and stayed away from people and lived as a recluse, sleeping by day. But the problem was he had a very dangerous flaw as a detective, and no doctor could fix it. And Totomaru, whose analysis skills were clearly lacking, said Ron was surely sick and his body very weak, and that was why he made the whole floor pillows. And Ron was about to kick him out and said if he took the sleeping pills that put him out for 3 days, he would be fine. But Totomaru refused. Totomaru refused to leave without him, as he did not want him to waste his talent, and said catching criminals was most important, while Ron tried to tell him that was not the problem only. Totomaru kept begging him to trust him and promised to support him no matter what. So Ron looked at him incredulously and told him he was very naive, but agreed to help him and told him to listen well, that no matter what happened, he must not take his eyes off him, while Totomaru, who understood did nothing told him if he saw him tired, he would push him in a wheelchair. So Ron was shocked and wondered what he was talking about, and told him they would run to the site, not walk. And at the start of the run, Totemaru felt it and asked himself what brought him there. And it showed clearly that his talent for couch running was better than street running. And they arrived there and were told the victim was an investment broker going to a work party. And suddenly Ron shocked the whole police force when he approached the body and started talking to it, asking how it drowned when there was no water around it, and why he handed over his belongings without resistance. And the police went crazy, wondering how he knew things about the victims when he did not know the investigations. But Ron said bodies spoke, but one needed to know how to listen, and said the foam on the mouth meant drowning, and there were no signs of resistance, and his suit clearly showed he was rich, and the traces of the missing watch were on his wrist. Totemaru started to wake up for the first time and admire the real work, and they learned that for 9 months, 5 victims were killed the same way, and all robbed and drowned without water. So Ron looked at the map that had the places they were last seen, like a birthday party, wedding, or reunion, which were all occasions, and from there he narrowed down the area. But Totemaru, who still thought himself a detective, said there was no place there where anyone could drown, and he also could not imagine a place to drown a man without resistance. But Ron, the real genius, said he found the place where that could happen and was very happy he was still skilled. After 5 years of stopping, then told them to catch the killer. So Totemaru was shocked and asked how the police spent 9 months finding nothing. But Ron told him that was his job, and in a moment he took Totemaru to a clothing store and dressed him in clothes that made him look like a rich heir, and told him he had to look wealthy. Then told him they had to fix the disaster on his head. So Totemaru went to the barber and told him he struck gold in the stock market. And after a while, the barber saw Totemaru fell asleep from extreme exhaustion, while the evil barber prepared the washing station and started filling it with water to drown him. But Ron arrived at the last moment and opened the door simply and said he liked picking locks as a hobby. Totemaru came out of the water and told Ron he held his breath for a minute like he told him, but did not understand anything. So Ron explained that the killer put carbon dioxide in the hair washing sink, so the air became low in oxygen, and with the first breath of less than 10%, the victim fainted and drowned, as the victims were all men with somewhat long hair because they had occasions. So naturally went to the barber, and he also had to look for a barber taking walk-in customers where the place was not visible from outside, and that barber met all conditions. And when it was time to escape, the barber ran but was cornered and confessed he killed for money. So Totemaru got annoyed and asked if he killed 6 people for money, but the barber said he was oppressed by the rich and had debts. But Ron told him that he who did not respect human life did not deserve to live, and told him in a strange voice to jump while his eyes changed. So the barber actually believed him and went to throw himself, and Totemaru was startled and said to himself that people could actually listen to his words, as the barber was about to fall and Ron was on the ground from pain. So Totemaru ran to save the man, and after a while Ron woke up and Totemaru told him the man threw himself. So Ron was shocked and asked if he did it again and why he trusted someone, and regretted it deeply, but was surprised when Totemaru called out to him and told him to come help him, as he held the barber by his hand and would not let go. So Ron was amazed that Totemaru risked his life like that without hesitation, and suddenly discovered that the matter was not as he thought at all, but the exact opposite, as Totemaru was not evil or anything but kind and naive, and his body moved before his brain comprehended. So Totemaru wanted to shut him up from the rambling he was saying to himself like a madman, and he got up to help him. But Totemaru fell, and before gravity took Totemaru into the embrace of the earth, Ron caught them both and saved them. And Ron was very proud and said he changed his mind and saw the world full of endless possibilities. Then in his house he fell from shock when Ron confessed that the flaw in him was not a flaw, but a disease that made him kill the guilty without realizing, and said at the time of the incident he remembered nothing but always pressured the criminal until death, and when he regained consciousness, it was too late, and that was why his case solution rate was 100%, but the criminal arrest rate was 0, which was the reason they banned him from working as a detective, and he cut ties with cases entirely. But Totemaru broke the chain of failure, and at that time, Totemaru understood why Kiku sent him, as Kiku discovered that Ron did not need a genius. By his side, he needed a kind idiot of Totemaru's type, and suddenly Ron told Totemaru they would be partners, and told him to bring him any case he could get his hands on, and he would solve it, and he could take all the credit. So Totemaru was very pleased that from today, he would be a great detective. Then they went back to past memories of a class full of students, who were all aggrieved and did not believe a new student could solve a crime that had been unsolved for years, and no one could solve it. And they began to wonder how he understood all criminals in that terrifying way, and his professor professor said this boy, when he graduated, could leave the world without unsolved cases. And that genius boy was Ron, of course. So we returned to the present, and Totemaru went to Ron and was surprised that the depressed introvert was sitting waiting for a new case with frightening enthusiasm. But when he learned there were no cases, he fell to the ground and entered the eternal lazy mode. So Ron told Totemaru that he was wasting his talent, and he was the greatest talent in Blue Academy, the #1 academy for training detectives, where all the smartest detectives graduated from there, and the smartest was Ron. But a disaster happened in practical training, as all the suspects he investigated died, so the administration accused him and expelled him and banned him from getting a detective license, and without this license, he could not get close to serious cases, and if he broke the rules, Blue would punish him with death. But Totemaru, who was himself a genius in his own way, asked him, well, didn't you just solve the case now? So he replied that he had to do so. But from now on, Totemaru would be in the front, and he would direct him from behind the curtain. But Totemaru spat on the idea when he heard he would be a puppet. So Ron apologized and told him he meant he was his puppet. But the important thing was he would go with him to crime scenes and hide from people. And Totemaru asked him why not. Talk to me on the phone. But Ron refused because he had to see the victim himself, and the problem was Totemaru did not decide which case to take, as that was his boss's job. But Ron, while falling on the floor, started analyzing her picture genially and discovered the picture was taken without them noticing, and the one who took it was a colleague of Totemaru who adored their boss and wanted her to step on him. So Totemaru told him Amamiya scared him, and all she gave him were trivial jobs, and his file in the department was named the trash box. So Ron told him that one day the king of trash would rule the world, and the case they had was stealing money from a piggy bank, a very trivial case. But the strange thing was it reached Division 1, and Totemaru thought Ron would not care, but he flipped suddenly and wore a disguise and jumped up, standing clearly loving the case. No one took seriously, so they went and entered the house, and he started preaching about everything regarding piggy banks and kept looking at strange things. And the most strange thing was that whoever stole the money did not take the jewelry that was visible, and also the family had been getting silent calls for a while. And here, Ron said it was impossible to solve an impossible case, and went and drank concentrated black sugar like it was water then. The big sister entered and said maybe her sister was imagining things. But the younger one said the piggy bank was lifted with difficulty due to the amount of money, and that was what Ron was waiting for. So he told them to break it, and after it was broken, the money turned out to be little, and the sister said surely it was stolen. But Ron stopped her from counting the money and said the fingerprints would tell. And indeed, the fingerprints all belonged to the big sister only. And at that time, Ron dragged Totemaru to a crime scene where Amamiya herself entered like a storm and left them all shocked, and went to the dead man and told him, finally, you honored us, and I will get your rights. Then threw the bag in Totemaru's hand and told him, your turn? So Totemaru started explaining the piggy bank mystery solution before everyone, and Amamiya told him we had nothing to do with these trivial cases. But Ron replied to her coldly and told her this was a case from your trash box, ma'am. So Totemaru explained that the little sister's fingerprints were not on a single coin, and that meant, but that did not work because money did not come out of the piggy bank unless it was broken. So Totemaru got confused and did not know how to reply. But Ron calmed him and reminded him of the small gift he brought him while walking. So Totemaru explained that taking money without breaking the piggy bank was impossible, but replacing the broken piggy bank was not impossible. And everyone was shocked when he said the money was not little because it was stolen as the piggy bank before this one was broken already, and the one who broke it tried to hide that. So he bought a new one and put some of his own money in it and accused the big sister, but she replied and said she would not need to hide something like this and would have told her little sister normally. So Totemaru got confused again, but Ron calmed him when he felt his voice starting to rise. Then he pulled himself together and explained that the reason for hiding the truth before them was on the river bank, and he dropped a bomb when he said what happened was murder, and everything became clear when he explained that this man had been stalking her for a long time, and he was the one making the silent calls and waited for her one day and chased her into her room where the piggy bank was heavy like an iron statue. So she grabbed it and hit him with it until he died, and the piggy bank broke and blood covered the money. So to hide her crime, she bought a new piggy bank and tried to fill it with other money, and that was why her fingerprint alone was on the money. And finally, she dragged the body here and used the big bag at the entrance, which was too big to be just for a simple overnight stay at her family's house. So Amamiya was shocked that the two mysteries were linked like that, and Totemaru was relieved. He said something while the little sister did not believe what happened, but the older one could not take it and collapsed and confessed everything. So Totemaru tried to justify and say she was forced by the man stalking her. But Amamiya said hiding a murder was still a crime, and before anyone comprehended what happened, Ron suddenly stood up and told the big sister, "Go drown yourself," and said he who kills a human and hides his crime did not deserve to live. So Totemaru was shocked that he was doing the same act that kills criminals in front of everyone, while Amamiya, for a strange reason, thought what he was doing was cool. But Totemaru ran quickly to explain to them that he was talking to himself as Ron was still in that state, and told her to drown herself in the river, and his eyes were hypnotizing her, so the big sister actually started going to drown herself, and Amamiya tried to stop her, but the girl slipped from them and kept repeating the same sentence and walking to the river. But at the last moment, Totemaru, who always acted without thinking, jumped into the water after her and saved her, and after a while was reassured when he found her sister was fine. Then Ron woke up from his state and was drowning in guilt that he pressured someone to kill themselves again, but managed to calm himself a little when he found she survived, thanks to Totemaru. Then the nervous inspector told Totemaru the case was closed, as they found a shard of the piggy bank in the man's hair, and his blood and fingerprints in the house. And if they considered what happened self-defense, they might lighten her sentence for disposing of the body, and Totemaru hoped that would happen. But Amamiya said there was a more important subject, and that Totemaru and his friend broke the rules. So Totemaru expected she would explode, but as soon as he lied and told her his friend's name was Camo instead of Ron, her attitude changed completely. Then Totemaru went to see Ron and was shocked when he found him asking about the next case that would make his heart dance, and said he was joking, but his body fell suddenly and showed he was not joking at all. And Totemaru thought this man was very strange, obsessed with cases and illogical. So Ron shook himself and told Totemaru to raise his head, and that although he was naive and pure, he did excellent work. And Totemaru accepted the gentle insult, as usual, and thought that no matter how full of flaws Ron was, there was still a part of him waiting for the next case, and waiting to see his deductions, and waiting for the pleasure of solving a new mystery. Then Ron suddenly said he wanted to celebrate, and shocked Totemaru when he said today was the birthday of his puppet far away from them. The director of the academy remembered the man named Ron, surely remembered him, as he had the highest score in the academy's history, and they said he probably returned to investigating cases. And the disguise teacher said this could be the end of all mysterious cases in the country. But another teacher reminded them that all criminals he investigated died, and they were all afraid a new disaster would happen, so they expelled him and banned him from getting a detective license, basically. So the director decided to open an investigation into Ron, and the tracking teacher volunteered to do this task, and the director told him it was forbidden to get close to him, and if he saw him doing something, he must report first, because if they provoked him, he might escape. And if it was proven that he really returned to work, he must be punished with the severest punishment at that time. Totemaru got a call and went, running to a big shop like a hypermarket, thinking it was a disaster, but found Ron upset because they refused to open an account for him, and all he wanted was for Totemaru to pay for him. So Totemaru thought the academy wanted to kill him, but Ron said the one in real danger was his cat being hungry, so they gave them a raffle ticket, and Ron forgot everything and became very enthusiastic, and spun the wheel and won the grand prize, a trip to a hot spring bath. And the man said the prize was for couples, and Totemaru was the only one valid, so they had to go together, and Ron wrote himself under the name Camo, and wrote next to it the naive, pure detective. And while walking, the tracking teacher knew their route, and the driver gave them a brochure and told them how beautiful the place was. But when he learned their tickets were for the annex, he apologized, and his attitude changed, and gave them a handwritten brochure. And when they arrived, they found the building looked like a ruin, and they met the owners, and with them the purple worker who was the tracking teacher in disguise, and thanked him for his service in the police. So Totemaru wondered how he knew, and the man said from the look of the shoes scuffed at the front from so much running. So Totemaru was impressed, but Ron told him not to be fooled, as journalists also ran that way. And then they revealed he knew, because he saw it written in the reservation papers actually. So they entered and settled in and started bathing in the bath, and Ron said he wished the bath was red like the legend no one knew, and started telling him that long ago the river used to flood the village, so they decided to throw a girl as a sacrifice, and the next day the water calmed down. But a few days later the water and the bath turned red like blood, and Totemaru stood in disbelief at this nightmare, while Ron explained that this talk was written in the handmade pamphlet, which the driver gave them a while ago, and Totemaru noticed that the mark on Ron's back was bigger than he thought. But Ron shocked him and told him that was not a birthmark at all, but a scar, and told him he had tattoos all over his body in the past, but this was the only scar that remained, and it looked like a number, and that was why he liked it, because it resembled the number 6, which linked him to his birthday, and to make him understand, he compared the matter to how Todomaru treated his grandmother, whom he loved then. They went to have dinner, and Todomaru was shocked by the dish Ron ordered, which was sticky lumps, so Ron had to explain to the ignorant one that this was rice drowned in the black sugar syrup he adored, and according to him, that was the secret of his genius. And he was also drinking black sesame juice to ward off anemia, and at that moment, Ron focused on the rest of the customers, where there was a man and his wife, and the man was in a hurry wanting his wife's wife to like the food, and a young man sitting alone. So Ron, with his eye that caught everything, said there were supposed to be 4 groups staying there, meaning someone had not arrived yet. But the shock was when he said that 5 people was an excellent number for what he intended to do, which was the game he loved, the game of life. Todomaru got tense because this game was on the list of things Ron wrote while sitting alone for 5 years. So heaven helped them with what was on the rest of the list. Ron wanted everyone to play, but Todomaru told him people were still eating and reminded him that it was normal in hot springs to play table tennis. So Ron agreed to wait, and they finished eating and went to play ping pong. And there they found an old scroll telling the secret of the crimson color, which looked scary. And Ron wondered if truly the death of a girl long ago was. What colored the water red anyway? They started the match, but Ron decided they'll be the slave of the winner for life, and Ron hit a hard shot. So Todomaru hit the ball, which flew and broke the glass, and there was no other one, so they went out to get it, but the weather was freezing. Ron told Todomaru he was his slave now, and his first order was to steal the files of cases that had not yet appeared. But suddenly, the missing party arrived, and the surprise was that it was the General Inspector Amamiya, but she looked like she made a big mistake. And after that, they discovered she won a second prize from the mart and turned by mistake into the men's bath. And she was. Terrified Ron would think her a pervert, while the man's wife was annoyed by her husband's words, who said it as a joke, but she did not believe it, and suddenly started screaming that she wanted a divorce. So Amamiya got confused and told them not to divorce, but got angry when Todomaru said maybe she had been drinking, and after she calmed down, the lady went to bathe and left her husband to rest. So Ron found the opportunity and asked her husband if he wanted to play the game of life. And the man agreed and asked the young man sitting alone who wanted to start his life over. And the boy agreed. So they sat playing, and Ron was in last place because he played honestly. And the young man said he wished one could actually restart life like the game. And the man also wished that, and it got late. So they decided to sleep and left the richest one to clean. But the tall, skinny instructor was looking at his watch the whole time like something was wrong, and in the morning a scream rang out through the whole place, and one of the workers ran to Amamiya and told her there was a dead girl in the women's bath. So everyone gathered and saw the water was red with crimson leaves in it, and the body was Saiko, the man's wife, and the man was shocked because he thought she was sleeping while Amamiya said that. The time of death was between 12 and 2 at night, so Ron approached the body as usual and told her he would avenge her as there were no wounds, but the situation was strange, and the worker said the tree leaves were not like that, and the water looked like the old story. So Ron pretended to be surprised but told Todomaru that this was his job and asked if anyone saw anything at that time, and the place owner said that they guarded the place in shifts, and the man who looked like an octopus said he was on the night shift and saw everyone and reminded them that only one person returned to the room before the lady went to the bath, and it was Amamiya. So everyone feared her, but Ron said it was impossible for her to be the killer, and she was terrified herself. So Ron decided to prove that immediately, and the instructor thought it was the moment of Ron's downfall, but was surprised when Ron pretended that all the deductions came from Todomaru, while Todomaru was making strange noises from stress, and Ron turned the noises into information, saying everyone saw the pamphlet in the taxi except Amamiya, because she did not come by taxi at all, so she did not know the story, meaning she could not execute a crime shaped like a story. She did not know, so everyone was convinced, and she sighed in relief, but the instructor was upset that Todomaru turned out to be a genius. So Ron asked Todomaru where the killer was, and Todomaru froze. So Ron laughed and said not yet, and the worker said she saw a strange white fog rising from the river after dinner. So Ron called Todomaru, who thought it was an important clue, but it turned out Ron found the ping pong ball, and they found a bath mat thrown away, while Ron was just thinking of reaching the ball. Then Amamiya came to thank him, but was about to explode from embarrassment, and told him that he should continue the investigation because she lost her credibility, and a word she said made Ron understand something important, and he told her that she did not make a mistake when she entered the men's bath, actually. And that was the biggest surprise for her, to the extent that she fell from the shock. And they returned to the ground floor, and the police worked while the instructor started spying with his device on Ron, expecting to hear evidence incriminating him when Totemaru came, and said the medical report stated the death was thermal shock due to the difference between outside and inside temperature. And Ron said fine, everything was fitting together. So they gathered the people, and Totemaru said the murder was timed and the killer stood among them. And since it had to be someone who knew the victim's heart condition, it was her husband. So the man said he could never hurt her and also was with them at the time of death. But Totemaru said on the contrary, he was with us to create an alibi for himself, and ended with the bombshell that the killer put a mat at the door of the bath to make her trip. And since her vision was poor, without her glasses, she would trip very easily. And falling in the bath was a trap she would not exit from again. So the worker said what killed her was thermal shock, and falling alone was not enough to stop her heart. So Totemaru agreed, but said the bath at that time was not hot water. No, it was freezing cold water. And that was strange because the spring was supposed to run hot always. So here, Totemaru told Ron to bring something that made her husband tremble with fear, which was a rain gutter thrown in the river, as her husband knew the height difference between the river and the bath. So he used 2 gutters, one to pull water from the river and deliver it to the bath, and the second to pull hot water from the bath and throw it into the river. And that way he turned the hot spring into a freezing hour. And that also explained the white fog the worker saw, as it was not a spirit nor a curse, but hot water steam meeting the river's cold. But his plan had a small mistake, as the leaves that fell from trees into the river from the rain 2 days ago entered with the water into the bath, and he could not remove every leaf. So he decided to work on the subject and exploit the old legend. So he increased the leaves and made the bath look like the curse of the woman, sacrificed long ago. So her husband clung to the last point and asked, but she died in the women's bath. So how did a man enter there and prepare all this? But Totemaru replied and told him if the man knew no one would come, it would be easy, as at dinner time the man heard Ron and Totemaru say they would play table tennis, so he was sure the men's bath was empty. So he seized the opportunity and switched the curtain, defining the men's and women's baths to make women go to the men's bath, and he would be alone in the women's bath. And that also explained why Amamiya entered the men's bath by mistake, as the match finished faster than he expected, and they returned before he could switch the curtain back to its place. So the man said he did not believe he was accused, and there was no proof, but Totemaru told him no, there was, as if they tested the curtain, they would find his fingerprints on it, and he was supposed to never touch the women's curtain. So explain that then. So the man went mute and said he was defeated, and Totemaru was relieved he finished speaking. And the man apologized to the worker because he failed. So the worker was shocked that he actually finished off his wife, and the man said he did that for her because she always said his wife stood in their way. So Amamiya flared up and told him he left himself to darkness because of his excessive love, to the point he finished off his wife for an illicit relationship. And people started fighting with him until they were shocked by Totemaru, who was always calm, screaming and saying to him, "You finished off your wife." So the man could not reply and was taken to custody. And Totemaru started looking for Ron because he saw something strange. So he went to the forest and found the instructor, who looked like an octopus, but had a new look, to the point Totemaru did not know him. And he told him Ron was waking up. So Totemaru was shocked when he found Ron tied to a tree, while Ron thought himself in a black sugar spring. So Totemaru had to wake him and tell him he was dreaming. And the instructor introduced himself as the tracking instructor from Blue School named Spitfire, and told him he came to investigate if Ron was working as a detective again. So Ron laughed at him and said he saw him from the first moment in the shop where they won the draw, and said Totemaru was the one who solved the case. But Spitz said that was impossible, and Totemaru was stupid to the point he did not notice him. So how could he make such great deductions? So Totemaru was broken psychologically, and Ron asked him for proof, and Spitz had nothing. So he said he did not need it, as he was sure Ron was the one who solved it. So Ron started teasing him and told him he was a failure in tracking, and a failure in thinking, and a failure in danger, because he tied him in the forest in the morning while people were walking, and asked how someone like you could be an instructor. So Spitz told him if he confessed he was investigating, he would mediate for a light sentence. But Ron sat deconstructing his words and told him if you came just to watch me, you would not have disguised yourself as a worker in the place and dealt with us, as that was strange behavior and illogical. Besides, putting yourself in danger, and there was a possibility we would escape from your words and threat and haste. So I see there is a personal matter. Either you challenged someone or someone threatened you. So Spitz collapsed and confessed he was defeated, and told him he needed his help. And he trained just to be a tracking instructor to find the best detective to solve the case case of his missing family, as no one could help him except Ron. But Ron refused to help him and told him he did not know him and did not trust him, and a sane person would not believe one like him. So Spitz said he was a good man and felt close to Ron after watching him a lot, and promised him to tell his superiors that Ron was not investigating, and said also he would help him in his work. But Ron told him that work was Totomaru's work, not his. And Spitz showed he was impressed and said, offered Ron this jacket as a gift, but Ron refused it again. So Totomaru told Ron maybe the man was not bad, and Spitz praised Totomaru and said he might not be smart, but had a big heart. And while leaving said if they needed him, he would help them, and flew from the tree like Spider-Man. Ron planned to reject him, but admitted his skills would be useful in other cases, and was drawn to the case of his family, but said he did not trust the man, and if he betrayed him, it would be his end, but said he trusted the opinion of Totomaru. And Totomaru said he was a good man, so Ron said fine, they would see if he was worthy or not, and said he would use him until he fell. So Totomaru said he was not bad and never left anyone in trouble, and thanked him for helping Amamiya in the case. So Ron told him he was just doing his duty. Then they saw a man looking into the fridge and smiling, an evil smile. And after a while, Totomaru told him there was a serial murder and a joint investigation, and the most dangerous thing was a genius coming to help them called Kawasemi the Hawk. So Totomaru went crazy with joy and said he could become a big leader while still young, which upset Amamiya because she wanted to be the leader. And suddenly she told Totomaru he would lead the investigation, but then insulted him under her breath and said she would not give Kawasemi her best men. Then Kawasemi arrived looking terrifying, holding his tweezers, and began inspecting the people, noting one had long nails, another had a button missing, and another had fingerprints on his glasses, and did not leave anyone until he exposed them. And he also removed a hair from someone's face, and finished with the whole group saying chaos was the enemy of work. So Totomaru was shocked, and Amamiya looked annoyed and said that nothing could escape the inspection of Kawasemi's hawk eyes, and we learned she used to have a soft spot for this man, but that ended when they stopped working in the same place years ago. Then Kawasemi focused on Totomaru, who began preparing for the inspection that could destroy his life, and the inspection was very violent, and Kawasemi decided from his long experience that Totomaru was not suitable to be a detective at all, and had zero skill. So Amamiya and Kawasemi looked at each other for a moment, and Kawasemi finally said there was some dust on her shoulder, but Amamiya did not intend to let this nonsense slide, so she blocked the small tweezers and told the mean man in front of her if he tried to touch her, she would cut his throat. And Kawasemi's tools broke, so he summoned his loyal partner, Yamane, to give him a new set, and Kawasemi praised him, saying he was his right hand. So Yamane, with all humility, said he was happy to work with the greatest detective in history, while Amamiya explained that Totomaru was the person she would send to the joint investigation. And Totomaru was shocked by her sarcastic tone as they argued that Amamiya did this just to upset Kawasemi, who acted like he did not see Totomaru at all, while Amamiya told Totomaru that he must appreciate her as a boss, because at least she acknowledged his existence at crime scenes. Then we learned that a car driver found a dead body in his car, and Totomaru was shocked when he saw the victim's hands were cut off. So Totomaru tried to cooperate with the other detectives, but they ignored him as if he did not exist, so he felt he might be a burden on someone great like Kawasemi. But Totomaru was not going to leave it at that, and that was something refreshing in his self-confidence. And luckily, Ron appeared suddenly in disguise, and Totomaru said no one asked for his help, but Ron knew Totomaru was lost because he always talked to himself, so it was easy to read him. Then Ron announced himself as a consultant in everything regarding hands, and shockingly announced that Tiyomaki, the master of hand puppets, had a card that looked legitimate, so Kawasemi assumed Amamiya sent him, but Kawasemi did not want any civilian to disturb the work. But Ron reassured Kawasemi he was not just a civilian, and told him not to hang on his words, because he had something to say. So Kawasemi immediately pulled out the tweezers to test the hand puppet's accuracy, and was shocked to find it very realistic. And Ron said he insisted on changing the puppet's material for detailed accuracy, so Kawasemi was impressed and allowed him to tag along. Totomaru explained that Kawasemi was the great hawk eye who saw everything in a second, so Ron's admiration turned to competitive anger, and he slapped his puppet's face, saying they had to catch the culprit first no matter what. But Totomaru said that was impossible because they told him nothing about the case. So Ron decided to go directly to the source, and Yamane explained that the case was similar to 3 previous murders, where the killer finished his victims with a blow to the heart and cut off their hands. So Ron was very excited about the scary case, which even Hawkeye could not solve, and Yamane said they were interrogating a suspect the night before, and were sure he was a hand collector, but his escape caused big problems. Then Kawasemi arrived after a while, and the man started running towards him, and Kawasemi could not stop him, and that was the reason he had to close the case. And Totomaru noticed they knew the culprit's appearance, so it would not take long to arrest him. But Kawasemi revealed a big problem that the man they thought was the hand collector at night was the same body before them, without hands. So Totomaru discovered that the real culprit was still at large and started acting strangely and talking to the body, and noticed the clothes were very light for the cold, and deduced he was killed in a hot room, while Ron noticed a small tattoo and guessed wrongly that it was a piece of grass. But Yamane quickly said it was a bird, and he saw it when they cuffed him. So Ron got tense about something important, but said pretending that he could not carry the puppet. So Kawasemi got a bit upset and told him to go back home, as there was no time for play. Then Totomaru tried to help him carry the puppet, and Ron smiled and carried it easily, and Totomaru flew onto Yamane. So Kawasemi, with a loud voice and all rudeness, insulted Totomaru for the mess, while Ron screamed and said how genius Totomaru was. So Kawasemi started to doubt, and Totomaru seized the moment and said the one who would solve the case was not Kawasemi, but the naive detective Totomaru. So Kawasemi asked him if he was confident of that, and Ron explained that Totomaru acted like that on purpose and saw Kawasemi's reaction, and the man was surprised by Totomaru's fast reaction and was able to avoid any problem. And Kawasemi was surprised when he learned Totomaru did that on purpose and understood he followed Amamiya, whom he knew was trustworthy and could solve great cases. So Kawasemi confessed the lie and said Yamane was the one who cuffed the culprit, but allowed him to escape on purpose, and revealed everything and showed them that Yamane lost his cuffs and was very worried. And that was why when the culprit died himself, Yamane tried to make it look like the culprit escaped after they cuffed him, as Yamane hid the man's body, then cut his hand. And that way, when the body was found later without hands, it would look like the hand collector took the cuffs with the hand, and no one would know. Yamane lost them. So Kawasemi immediately defended Yamane and said he would never do something like that. But Totomaru stood and told him Yamane was part of the problem, as it was clear how much Kawasemi valued Yamane. But this pressure made Yamane unable to allow himself to be less than perfect. So Kawasemi was shocked and had no words to say. And Yamane apologized profusely for being a stain on Kawasemi's career, as Yamane was totally shattered, and explained that the responsibility was very big on him and he could not achieve his expectations. So Kawasemi said returning Yamane to the police would be difficult, but he was not a bad person, and said if Yamane had the will, he would wait until the return of his partner. And after he took him, Yamane said it was not necessary for all team members to be police officers, and used the example of Totomaru, who solved a great mystery, to explain their idea of not underestimating his eyes, and said to Totomaru that just as he needed Yamane, the master of puppets, he needed Totomaru to employ all his abilities. So Ron was touched by this point, but Totomaru intervened and said how messy Ron was without him, and they fought a little while Kawasemi was watching happy with Totomaru and thought how Amamiya had an excellent detective. After a while, Totomaru went to visit Ron and found him in a very tired state, with red eyes from staying up, as Ron was excited for a new mission but became a TV addict and a specific program called Psychic Abilities, Fact or Fiction, where the presenter Ono was presenting the program, and with her a specialist in brain surgery trying to prove psychic abilities. And the person showing his power was called Tag, and in front of him was a genius surgeon named Mofu, who was almost sleeping from fatigue. And Totomaru wondered if she was injured because of the big bandages. So Mofu explained she was just cutting apple pieces, and the knife slipped and made an injury. And Ron said the girl was strange but very fun to watch. So Totomaru wondered if she was really a surgeon of excellent brain, and Ron clarified that her procedures were very precise, and she was considered a super doctor, but she was very clumsy. And the audience laughed when the microphone got stuck in her face, while Tag explained he would show how to control a person with a word only, and Ron encouraged him. So Totomaru was surprised he believed in psychic powers, but in reality he did not believe, but saw this made solving crimes fun and a bigger challenge, as Tag tried to make a person do something against his will, and started by offering $10,000 if he could resist and put headphones on a person from the audience and wrote the word jump, and the person started jumping against his will, and the audience clapped. Then another card written on it run, and the person started running, and people were amazed. Ron noticed something important and wondered if Mofu noticed it too, as Mofu used the navigation to track the movement of the volunteer and found him the same person used in a previous experiment, meaning the whole thing was acting, and she showed the proof on her broken mobile. Totomaru said the accusations were all wrong and started writing a word proving he was not cooperating with the volunteer. So Tag wrote the word die, and the people were surprised as Mofu did not believe in psychic power and was sure this would not kill the person. But he showed the man the card and he fell immediately, and everyone was shocked and started to panic. And the program was cut, so Ron told Totomaru there was no time to waste, and they arrived at the scene and confirmed the man's death, and the police asked who Totomaru's friend was. So Ron introduced himself as Kageji, a super fan of the man, and Totomaru started approaching the body vowing he would avenge him, while Ron kept pretending to be a fan and asked for Tag's autograph with the pen he used in the experiment. So Tag signed in the small book, but his handwriting was very messy, and Ron could barely read it, while Tag went out and blamed Mofu for all this, saying had she believed in his psychic powers, the experiment would not have been needed. So they went to check on her, and a girl named Sakata introduced herself as Mofu's assistant at the hospital, and Totomaru did not see she was at fault, but Mofu said she was fully responsible for allowing the man to die in front of her. So Ron asked her if this made her believe in psychic power, and she said she was not sure but certain the man died due to a neurotoxin, while Ron actually deduced a drop of blood on the victim's neck. So Totomaru wondered if Tag used a poison dart, but she rejected that and said she saw Tag well and he did nothing suspicious, and also there was no one behind the victim. So Totomaru started to doubt psychic power while Ron kept celebrating Tag's victory. But Sakata explained a personal reason for Mofu that made her unable to lose. So Ron revealed himself and said he was not a fan of this man, but a fan of facts, and clarified that the person saw the death card and closed his eyes and fell. But after Mofu did CPR, the person regained consciousness for a moment, but his breath cut off again, and Totomaru confirmed that Tag did not insert any needle during CPR, and forensics did not find any needles. So Totomaru started to be sure that psychic powers were real, but Ron said all evidence was present, and Mofu noticed that the eyes of the person were affected and gave him eye drops. Then Sakata gathered everyone and decided to solve the mystery and made them act out the whole scene with Mofu as the victim and Totomaru as Tag, and Totomaru used the same cards of Tag, and Tag had the pen. So Tag tried to refuse, and Mofu got angry, but unfortunately she tripped and took the pen and apologized, while Totomaru wrote the word, and Mofu acted like the fake volunteer as he wrote the word jump. So Mofu jumped, and he wrote run, so Mofu ran, and people started to get upset, and Totomaru showed her the word die. So everyone was shocked, but she fell, and Totomaru reassured everyone and said she was not dead, and explained that when he showed the card to the victim, he flipped it, and the word death upside down became sleep. So the person was conscious when he fell, and the man was just pretending to be asleep, as the headphones prevented him from hearing any noise. So he stayed in the act even when Tag was taking his pulse, which meant Tag injected the man during the chaos. And when the broadcast was cut, Mofu was shocked because the poison was just starting to take effect while she was doing CPR. So Totomaru confirmed that no psychic powers were used and confronted Tag immediately, and Tag got angry and said that they still had not found the poison needle. But Totomaru suddenly revealed they found it, and Totomaru explained that the reason which made Tag use his thick pen to sign in the small book was that he was hiding the poison needle in his thin pen, so everyone was shocked. But Tag insisted he had psychic powers and wanted to prove it to everyone and shouted words about his psychic powers, but nothing happened. And in the end, he confessed he lied and surrendered, then launched a verbal attack and revealed the volunteer was threatening him and that he would reveal the secret of the trick if Tag did not pay him 90% of the profits. So killing him was the only solution. Suddenly Ron threw the poison pen to Tag and told him frankly to take his own life because anyone who underestimated the life of others had no right to live, and told Tag to stab himself, and Totomaru immediately understood that Ron was doing that thing again which made someone end their life. So our hero acted to prevent the pen, but everyone was shocked when they saw Totomaru got stabbed in his hand and Ron regained his consciousness. But worried about Totomaru, and Mofu ran to help him, but it was too late as he had the poison needle mark. But something was not right, and Tag explained that he swapped the tip of the pen with the needle, meaning it was impossible to leave a mark, which meant he did not have the right pen, and thankfully the poison pen was just one of those on the floor. Then Totomaru explained he thought he died, and Ron apologized for what he did, but Totomaru did not believe it and was sure sure Ron would be ready to investigate the next case. But something was different this time, as Ron did not make a witty comment as usual and just said he was wrong when he started investigating these crimes, and if things had ended differently, there would be no way to reverse it, and Ron felt he had no right to be a detective. So Totemaru wondered if the time came to stop this dangerous method, but suddenly he heard Mofu calling for help and found the clumsy girl tangled in something. And when they freed her, she thanked him for solving the case and revealed the reason for the importance of winning for her was that she had patients who believed in psychic powers too much and refused operations, and now after they disproved psychic abilities, a little their lives would be saved. And this talk brought back new life energy to Totemaru, and he thanked her and apologized for Ron scaring people, and in the end explained that Ron had a strange habit of pressuring the killer to do things, and Mofu seemed interested then. After that, the renewed hero saw Ron and told him he should not give up after what happened, so Ron replied quickly that he almost killed Totemaru, but Totemaru reminded him it was just an accident, and Ron could not accept this and said if it happened again with the worst result, he could not live with himself. So Totemaru assured him he would stop Ron next time and told him he had to have confidence in himself, and Ron was now focused on him, while Totemaru stressed how much he loved investigation and loved helping people, and their lives were at the heart of everything he did. Then Totemaru showed him an invitation he received today for a meteor viewing spot on a remote island, and he did not know the sender well, but wanted a change of scenery, so Ron agreed and said it might be a good chance to escape a little from mysteries, as the island was famous for black sugar syrup, and Totemaru was surprised that was the real reason for Ron's agreement. And after a while we saw them going to the island, and the person who invited them said he had a friend in the police department, and Kawasemi said Totemaru was one of the best detectives right now. So Ron wondered why an excellent detective would be invited to a meteor viewing party, and the man explained so they would be ready for anything, and mentioned an incident that happened on the island. So Ron tried to know details but stopped himself because he was there to rest and stay away from cases. Yet Ron tried to ask, so Totemaru said he was a bit tired, but the man was not worried and said he brought him as insurance and was certain nothing would happen. And they finally arrived at the island, and the man explained that farmers came from the main island during the sugarcane harvest season, but now it was not the season, so those present were only the observatory staff and guests. And Ron still had questions, but this time about his precious black sugar syrup, and the man assured him it was made from the cane there. So Ron noted he wanted 3 meals a day of the highest quality, as Ron was in vacation mode and decided to try the hula hoop after eating, which was a strange thing, but written on a list he made during 5 years of isolation. And they arrived at the observatory and started to focus when they saw a pistol displayed in the lobby, and the man explained it was a replica to ward off evil spirits, and the boys were impressed and unable to tell the difference between it and the original, but wondered about the evil spirits, as long ago island residents protected the sugarcane and kept an old pistol as a charm. Then they walked to the guest rooms on the 2nd floor up to the observatory room and found a very angry chef named Dono with the dome closed and the place soundproof. And this woman was venting her stress by screaming and complained about a guest named Donazu who was angry because the stars were not positioned correctly on the coffee cup. And also there was a person who ordered a full meal of black sugar syrup, so Ron said that was for him. So the woman apologized and things became awkward, but the tension ended when Totemaru was shocked by the shape of that man's hair, as he was very strange, and explained his haircut was scientifically designed so it would not get messy while looking into the telescope, and he called them impure guests, meaning people who did not appreciate meteors and were not interested in astronomy. And there was also a photographer present, and the girl introduced herself saying she was Onodera, and they clarified that there was another guest not interested in astronomy among them, and Ron strangely called him sensei, as this man was a teacher at Blue Detective Academy responsible for the closed circle theory named John Grizzly, and John was one of the few Ron acknowledged as higher than him, and John wanted to know why Ron was there. So Ron simply said he came for a tasting trip, while the man who invited them named Jumanji explained to everyone that he invited Totemaru and John to ensure there were no problems. So Ron was a little surprised by the invitation of famous detectives, and Onodera said that was the least he could do after what happened there before. So Ron tried to tell her he was not interested, but Totemaru quickly noticed noticed that his words and actions did not match as Ron held his hand to his ear as if trying to hear more, then acted as if Totomaru was the one who wanted to hear the details. So John continued explaining and revealed that 10 years ago, the director at the time and 6 others were shot dead, and Jumanji said the one who died 10 years ago was his father, and the gun used was never found, and the killer was still unknown, so they decided to close the observatory. But his father loved it very much, and he was sure that overcoming this tragedy would be his father's wish, and that was why he was hosting a party to watch the same meteor shower, and everyone encouraged him. But a woman with blue hair faked her tears named Orima, and said she was the idol of the Orion constellation, when suddenly the dome opened without permission, and Ron could not help himself, while the director explained that the telescope tracked any star-registered and recorded video, but they would not use it to watch meteors, because the naked eye was enough, as the meteor shower did not start until 11 at night, so everyone was allowed to enjoy the buffet until that time. And after a while, Totomaru noticed that Ron had been sitting for a long time, and everything in front of him was covered in black sugar syrup, and the strange man with the hairstyle said that Ron charmed them all because he was a pure astronomy lover. So Ron said he learned about astronomy long ago, and Totomaru now discovered he did not know much about his secret partner. So Detective Totomaru wondered if John knew about Ron's disease and might have an idea for a cure. So Totomaru approached him, and John suddenly asked him if Ron was investigating anything. So Totomaru lied and said and explained that he knew Ron pressured criminals but did not know the details, and asked John if Ron really pressured criminals to death. So John started explaining that 5 years ago, Ron participated in practical training and succeeded amazingly in locating the base of a group of 7 killers. And when the police entered the base, they found Ron standing, shocked and covered in blood with the weapon in his hand, amidst the bodies of all 7 killers. And this incident became famous as the bloody training incident, with 99% certainty that Ron was the one who did it, but he did not remember anything 30 minutes before or after. So he was considered insane at the time, and the punishment was only revoking his detective license. But this man said he was lucky, and if he were in charge, he would have given him a death sentence. And Orima suddenly ran to Totomaru to stop him from Ron. So Totomaru went to see the matter and found Ron very tense, trying not to emit a smell while playing hula hoop. And Ron said he was just explaining the orbit of planets in the solar system, and was happy he achieved his goal, but was tired and went to sleep, and said he might see the meteors in his dreams. And after a while, the meteor shower began, but Totomaru noticed Onodera was not there, and she said she went to get camera equipment, but it had been 2 hours and she did not return. And the dome opened suddenly, and everyone ran when they heard a gunshot, and the telescope door was locked. So the director ran to get the key, and John tried to ask if anyone was inside, but the director returned without finding it. So everyone broke the door and found pitch darkness and the lights not working. So Orima brought them flashlights, and they found Onodera and Ron on the ground. And thankfully Ron was still breathing, but Onodera died, and John was very angry at himself, as he should have expected this, while Totomaru hoped he would not think Ron did it. But everyone said it was clear it was Ron because the gun was next to him, and the chef suspected him too for being obsessed with black sugar syrup. So Ron defended his favorite food and said black sugar syrup was not at fault, and said he woke up from a sound and remembered nothing after returning to his room and sleeping. But he could deduce from their words that he was in a very difficult situation now, and everyone wanted to arrest him. But John silenced them and said they were all suspects, as John viewed everything with fairness. And Ron said he was truly a teacher reflecting the ideas of Blue Academy. So Ron and John and Totomaru started investigating the case, and Totomaru thought he must investigate too, and told Ron to stay quiet and watch, while John said the body was still warm, meaning she died very recently, and the bullet pierced her heart from her back, and the gun was the one displayed in the lobby, and the director never imagined it was real, and the lights were all broken and no escape ladder, and the dome was impossible to climb, and there were no other exits, meaning no one but Ron could have done it, and the evidence against Ron could not be denied, like 5 years ago, as the observatory door was completely locked and there was no other way to enter or exit, and Ron did not believe the lock made him the culprit, but suddenly found the key in his pocket, the only master key, and did not understand how it got there. So everyone was sure he was guilty, but Totomaru said there was no motive to harm her. But John decided that Totomaru should arrest Ron, and Totomaru started to refuse, but Ron agreed as long as Totomaru was the one arresting him, and Totomaru wanted him to defend himself, but he did not want to say anything, and John asked Totomaru to bring him shoes to walk on the broken glass, and the director called the police on the main island, and everyone thought the place was cursed, and Jumanji was happy they found the culprit and thanked John, while Totomaru cuffed Ron in another room, and Ron explained that his memory stopped when he fell on his bed, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself in the observatory with Onodera. So Todomaru wondered if this was the same feeling from the bloody training incident, and Ron said yes, and started believing he was the killer because he did not remember anything. So Todomaru got angry that this was not the Ron he knew, but Ron told Todomaru he had no proof he was innocent. But Todomaru replied that the victim was a normal person, and Ron all his life pressured only criminals, not innocent people, and Todomaru confirmed that even if Ron was not sure of his innocence, he was sure, and Ron woke up and said Todomaru's words warmed his brain a little, and mentioned he had a secret that he was a total failure in shooting, as all his life he succeeded in all subjects except shooting, and he could never even hit the target while Onodera was killed directly in her heart. But Ron said even if he tried 1,000 times, he could not hit a single shot. So Ron wondered why he did not say this before, and explained that since the time of the incident 5 years ago, he always told himself if anything like that happened again, he would surrender and not fight, no matter how hard. It was for him after that day, as he was resented by everyone. So this was the only way to keep his sanity, and explained to him that his brain was working at only 1% capacity. But Todomaru understood that if Ron was not the real culprit, then someone framed him, and that person was still at large, and ran to investigate. Ron thought about how he was crying and screaming when he was arrested 5 years ago, and wondered why this time he was not afraid, and after a while understood the reason was because he had Todomaru with him now. While outside, it rained hard, and Jumanji almost had a heart attack when he learned the police would not arrive until morning or later. So Todomaru returned to the crime scene and found something shocking, as all the lights in the room were shot without a mark, meaning surely it was not Ron because he was not skilled at shooting, and bullets were fired several times. But from outside the dome, they heard only one shot, so Todomaru tried to talk to the body like Ron, but he got very scared, then thought about the telescope which recorded stars automatically and went to see the computer. But someone came from behind him, and it turned out to be John, who thought he was an intruder, as John was looking for evidence to incriminate Ron to ensure he deserved the death penalty, and John revealed that he met everyone, and Todomaru noticed that. This big man was steps ahead of him, and everyone said Onodera was last seen at 11 at night and returned to her room to get photography equipment. But John felt this was strange, especially with the bad weather forecast, and the shot that was heard at 1 at night was the one that killed her. But everyone had an alibi, as Jumanji was holed up in his office at 11:30 and returned to the roof before midnight, and Dono was on the roof the whole time, except once for the bathroom, and Ono was in the kitchen from 11 to 1 and was talking to Orima, who went to get drinks, was doing a live stream for her followers from midnight to 12:40, and that meant that no one had a good alibi, and the one who had no alibi was Ron, and Todomaru was sure Ron was innocent. But John said it was illogical, so Todomaru replied quickly and said this was not his field, but Ron's job, and John was surprised by Todomaru's way of speaking about Ron, and Todomaru said it was because they were true friends, and showed him the bullet holes, and what he found on the computer as the recording started at 11 at night, but it was all black until 1 at night, and from that hour, it recorded only the North Star. So Todomaru thought it was unimportant, but John understood something, and was surprised at himself, and left Todomaru the key to free Ron and tell him everything, as Ron was surely not the culprit, but there was no time to rejoice, and they had to catch the real criminal quickly, and John advised him to be careful as no support was coming to them, and the police were late due to the weather. So Todomaru freed Ron and explained to him everything, and Ron understood that shooting all lights in a dark dome was impossible, and that meant the lights were shot before 11 at night, or 1 at night, as there were 7 lights, and they heard only one shot at 1 o'clock. So the rest were shot before 11, and the glass was on the floor before 11, and Ron was barefoot. So if he entered in the dark, his feet would have been cut and wounded, and his place was far from the body, and he could not shoot her. So Ron took courage and decided to focus on the fun part, and explained that the extreme drowsiness after dinner was due to sleeping pills put in the sugar syrup, black. So Todomaru thought it was from the chef, but Ron clarified that everyone had a chance to tamper with it. So Ron wanted to put solving the crime aside a bit and enjoy, and explained his plan to drink syrup without pills. While John focused on trying to know the real criminal and found a fishing line, Ron dived into his secret stash of black sugar syrup and said it was his power source, and thought that any evidence of who dragged him from bed was removed, and Ron understood that the crime was prepared carefully, not a passing chance, and he was targeted from the start to be framed, and Todomaru explained that John intended to apologize next time, and Ron said that was why he respected him very much, and Todomaru said that John was a very good man too, and revealed that John wanted to reopen the investigation into the bloody training incident. So Ron was so excited that the syrup flew everywhere and could not wait to thank John, but suddenly a shot was heard, and John fell out the window as John was alone and screamed, "It was a trap!" trap, and Ron arrived after a while, but it was too late, and John died. So Totomaru was stunned, and Ron stressed the danger of the situation because John was a teacher at Blue Detective Academy, and whoever killed him must be very strong. So Ron promised that he would avenge Sensei, and Totomaru promised to help him. Then Ron started analyzing the situation and saw that John's clothes had no sign of struggle, so he was shot from afar or surprised, and he noticed the fishing line, and those who arrived assumed Ron did it, but Totomaru defended him, and Ron explained quickly that the same gun Onodera was shot with was on the roof, and the criminal took it from John, and everyone got scared. So Totomaru reviewed everyone's alibis as Jumanji was in his office, and Dono in the bathroom, and Ono sleeping with earphones, and Orima had earphones for the live stream, meaning no one had a good alibi, and anyone could have put the bullet in John, and the police would not come soon. And Dono got very scared that the tragedy from 10 years ago would repeat and said the island was cursed, and everyone was shocked. Ron calmed everyone and said this would not happen, and clarified that Totomaru was very angry, and the criminal was hiding with full self-confidence. So Totomaru and Ron went back to investigate the first crime, and Totomaru explained how they entered the door. Ron thought of something about the dome and asked Totomaru about the key and the string, so Totomaru thought he solved it. But Ron showed him he was wrong because the door sides had adhesive and no string could pass, which made Ron sure the opponent was very strong, and Totomaru could not believe Ron's joy. Then Ron focused on the body, and all he saw was the ventilation opening, and no one entered or exited from it. So Ron had Totomaru turn off the lights, and after seconds, they discovered that Onodera pressed the dome switch immediately before being killed. So Totomaru started to worry no one had an alibi, but he found Ron challenging himself and trying to hula hoop in the dark. So Totomaru thought he gave up, but Ron showed that the string got caught in the hula hoop, and that was an important clue as Onodera came while looking for Totomaru and was afraid of the storm and explained she asked Ono for flashlights. So Ron understood something about the flashlights and thanked Onodera for the last piece of the puzzle, and Ron told Totomaru it was his turn and the time for counterattack came. And after a while, Totomaru gathered everyone to arrest the killer quickly, and everyone was shocked because he solved the case, and Ron explained the killer was in the same room and started explaining John's murder as Totomaru and Ron saw John fall out the window, and if they had not seen him, they would have gone to the roof, but strangely, someone else went to the street too and had no umbrella to hide the wetness. So Totomaru surprised everyone and said the killer was Jumanji. So Jumanji tried to say he would never do such a thing and started giving the usual excuse that he mistakenly thought the shot came from the street, but no one was stupid enough to believe that talk, and his second mistake was that he was with Totomaru when Onodera was killed, but Totomaru surprisingly had solved this case too, as Totomaru explained that Jumanji just pretended to be in his office watching videos. But the truth was he used sleeping pills to put Onodera to sleep and dragged her to the dome and had shot the lights before that and put Ron on the floor after using the same pills on him, and Jumanji put the key in Ron's pocket and glued the dome doors with what he glued with super glue. So Ono the chef was amazed by Ron's intelligence because she thought the doors were locked from inside, and Totomaru explained that was the smartest part of the obsessed killer's plan as Jumanji gave a lighter dose of sleeping pills. So she woke up and went to look for the light switch because the room was completely dark as the lights were all broken thanks to the genius criminal. So she walked looking for the door to exit but did not know the doors were glued, so she tried the key and thought she was opening, but she was locking the doors instead of opening them. So the others started to believe the genius detective, but the man with mushroom hair was avoiding and started acting detective from behind the scenes and asked how Onodera was shot in the locked room and who did it. So Totomaru explained everything and said the criminal predicted Onodera's movements after locking the door. And after they found the fishing line, John left, everything became clear as Jumanji tied one end of the line above the telescope and the other end to the trigger of a gun hidden inside the ventilation opening, and the only thing lit in the room besides the light switch was the dome opening switch. So Onodera thought she was smart to open the roof and let in starlight and call for help, but she was foolish, and when the telescope moved to record a star, it pulled the line and the line pulled the trigger and the gun was aimed perfectly and shot her, but Jumanji insisted he would not surrender and said the gun was seen next to Ron, not in the ventilation, and Totomaru reminded them that the gun they found in the lobby was different and the real gun was taken from the ventilation when everyone entered the dome and got busy with the body. But Jumanji's madness did not stop here, as he used the same gun to finish off John too. So Jumanji lost his mind and asked why anyone would think he committed these crimes and demanded answers, but Totomaru was unaffected and reminded him that the one asking now was Totomaru and explained that before before they opened the dome doors, Jumanji told Ono to bring them flashlights, but the only one who knew the lights were shot was the person who shot them. So this stubborn man finally collapsed and said he lost, and Jumanji felt no remorse and said Onodera deserved that. Then Jumanji revealed her secret that Onodera was not a photographer, but a journalist covering public cases, and was looking for evidence about what happened 10 years ago. And Jumanji knew immediately on the meteor night and decided to finish her off. So Ron said something that shocked Jumanji, clarifying that meant Jumanji had a dark secret from 10 years ago. So Jumanji started revealing everything that on the day of the incident, his father used the gun on the guests and staff, then killed himself. And Jumanji was the first to see the massacre and knew he had to hide it because of the shame that would come to him. So Jumanji wanted to live his life in peace and thought he could do that by committing cold-blooded crimes. And Jumanji wished if John alone had blamed Ron, but he did not do that, so he had to send him to the afterlife too. Then Ron lost consciousness again, and Jumanji tried to control him with his eyes that did mind control. But Totemaru stopped the obsessed justice plan, and Ron regained consciousness. And Jumanji went completely mad and refused to let Ron take his life, and planned to take a pill to end his own life. So Ron knew it was a suicide pill and tried to make him spit it out, but his attempt did not work. But he told Jumanji he still had questions why he chose Ron to be framed, and why he chose to come to the island in the first place. So Jumanji confessed that Ron was part of the plan from the beginning, and told him no matter how he tried to dance in someone else's palm, he was still under someone's control. So Ron asked who the person was, and Jumanji just said the night turned into morning, and thus ended his wasted life. And Ron tried to get more confessions, but it was no use, no matter how genius a detective he was. And in the morning, everyone was relieved because the police would finally arrive, and they waited, but only after 3 people died. And Ron was still upset because he was part of Jumanji's plan from the start, and the man exploited his rare love for black sugar syrup to attract him. So Ron thought if Jumanji was just a follower of someone else, then who was that person? So Ron thought about the body's last words, night turns into morning, and coincidentally it was morning now. So he opened the roof and discovered something, but Totemaru interrupted him with the police, and one of the policemen was surprised by the presence of a big shot, and Orima and Totemaru finished his questions to Orima, who praised him and said he was a star detective, and the obsessed girl left quickly. Then the police finished collecting the bodies and the boat started to leave, and Ron was very regretful and could not believe John would leave in a body bag, and remembered his words that he would stop investigating, but quickly took back his words as the matter resembled the bloody training incident where Ron woke up at the crime scene without any memory. And not only that, Ron showed a picture he took of Onodera's body with the morning light, and what he saw in the picture was the same shape of the scar on Ron's neck, drawn in red ink before she was killed, and Ron never noticed it before, and all evidence pointed to the same thing, that he was framed, and the bloody training incident was fabricated for him. So Ron dedicated his life to deduction, and the mysterious person stole 5 years of investigation from him, and this person got tired of waiting and committed a crime similar to elements from 5 years ago, and invited Ron to it as if saying he was smarter than him, and as if laughing because he held his life in his hand. So Ron could not stand it, especially since he used his expensive love for black sugar against him, and promised he would never forgive this person for the framing, while one of the police was alone. Jumanji appeared from the body bag and was happy he survived, and thanked the policeman for his help. And Jumanji did not know he could fake his death like that, and thanked the policeman again, so the policeman clapped for him in the name of a certain family. And Jumanji was ready to start his new life, as Onodera was close to revealing the truth. But the family contacted Jumanji at the right time, and this family was named the legendary House of M, the summit of the criminal world, and all crimes passed through them and no one could solve them. So Jumanji could not believe one of them stood before him, and the humble policeman just wanted to know how Ron acted. So Jumanji explained that when Ron knew the culprit, his personality changed just as the family said, and Jumanji got tense and said if he had not faked his death, Ron would have had to finish him off. So Jumanji continued praising, but the policeman had all the information he needed, and with a bullet to his head, the policeman removed the hyper-realistic mask of the end, then told his brother the job was done, and the blonde boy explained that he saw Ron for the first time, but he was not like anyone in their family. And the boy explained that when Ron saw the mark matching his scar, his face went red and white, clearly not understanding its meaning. So the brother then explained that one day Ron would appreciate the blood inside him, which came from their family's side. And the man then revealed the biggest secret, that the genius detective Sherlock Holmes and the crime lord James Moriarty, Ron had the blood of both of them. While back on the island, they saw these geniuses while he was playing hula hoop, and Ron was not depressed now and saw that the existence of a mystery linked to him was fun, and more importantly, Ron asked Totemaru if he would continue helping him, and they agreed they were friends now. And Totemaru agreed, because he did not want anything bad to happen to him. And there was good news, as Ron explained. The chef gave him the remainder of the black sugar syrup, and Totemaru did not want any, but Ron told him he had enough quantity to share with him. And after a while, the detectives returned home, and Totemaru was surprised to see Ron arranging the floor he used to laze on, and Totemaru thought to tell him that Ron looked a bit strange since returning from the observatory, but quickly remembered he was always a bit strange. While the boat carrying the observatory killer sank, and the crew was missing, and Ron did not see it was an accident, and Totemaru thought he was crazy, but Ron was not sure if the person who gave him the scar was the one who sank the boat. So Totemaru started to believe a little, and thought how this crazy detective was so calm. While walking, Ron planned to take necessary precautions, and at the same time enjoy his life. Then he found Ron's cat looking half dead under the floor he lazed on, and Ron revealed that he brought him a souvenir for Amamiya. So Totemaru gave her the gift, but she ignored him completely because she was busy with her work. Then Totemaru met a journalist named Mona, who usually wrote about actors and athletes, but today she would follow Totemaru for her column about special people. And Totemaru was very suitable because she saw in him a hero. Since she was young, she was kidnapped and a brave police officer saved her, and since then she saw detectives as heroes, and that was why she became a journalist and tried to solve cases herself, as she was following Totemaru very well and felt he was like a leader to her, while Totemaru thought that Ron was the one who deserved all the credit and did not want to expose him and put him in danger. So Totemaru explained there was no mission right now, but the girl admiring him was attached very much to him, and she thought the administration was waiting for the next big case, which was expected because he was the distinguished detective in Division 1, and Mona followed Totemaru all day, but he wanted to finish before she discovered his secret, as Totemaru was working on paperwork all day. So they suggested going to the cafe to do an interview, and Totemaru was surprised to see Ron working there, and he introduced himself as Kako Kamanashi. So Kamanashi explained to them there was no black coffee here, and the only black thing they had was black sugar syrup. So Totemaru pulled Ron aside, and Ron explained to him he was there to teach the owner how to make his special drinks. So Totemaru laughed and told him he had much free time, and Ron replied quickly. That was only because Totemaru did not bring him any work, and Ron was able to know that Totemaru's friend was a journalist in seconds because he noticed her worn shoes and the phone cards she had, and the first thing she looked at was the magazine rack. And at the same time, a group of girls entered where two ordered drinks, and one took photos outside, and Totemaru took the first drink, and Ron told them it was not just black sugar syrup, but it also had water. And Totemaru did not believe that Ron was actually working there, but Ron showed them the truth when he made drinks for the girls, and the girls were very happy with his work. But Ron got upset when one thought it was a duck drawing, while in reality it was drawn as a platypus, his favorite animal. So the girl took photos of the guys and said she would write an article about the cases Totemaru solved, and Ron finally could not guard anything because he did not notice the girl was a journalist specializing in crimes. Then Ron gave them a sample of their black sugar syrup, but the quantity was very big for them, so Totemaru pulled Ron aside to know what he was doing, and Ron said crime journalists were an excellent source of information for difficult cases and wanted Totemaru to build a good relationship with them. So Ron tried to impress Mona a little, but she felt Totemaru was not comfortable, and Ron was able to know immediately that she liked Totemaru very much and was impressed by her, when suddenly one of the girls who entered before fell fainting. So Ron made Totemaru call the police because he discovered the girl was poisoned, and the place turned into a crime scene quickly, and the police confirmed there was a cyanide capsule in the cup from which the girl died. So Ron promised he would avenge her, and Mona got upset and said the crime scene was the battlefield for the genius detective Totemaru, who was the best one in it. And Mona was upset when she said that even a suspect like Ron was happy that the great Totemaru was on the case, while Ron explained that only 3 people had a chance to put poison in the coffee, he who made the drink and the 2 girls who were with her, which was very few, and there were not many clues, but Mona promised that she would cover Totemaru very well. So Ron saw this as a great opportunity for the complex case and told Mona that whenever she heard about a case, to call Totemaru immediately. And Totemaru interviewed the 3 suspects, and Ron explained that he made the latte only. And what happened was strange, that the stupid girl thought the duck drawing was a duck, while the green girl, named Hayami, was the one who brought the drinks. And the victim, Julie, was taking photos, and when they returned to the table, she drank the latte and died. So Totemaru said he did not think the waiter did did it, because there was no way to know who would drink which cup, and also there was no motive, meaning if he was to kill, he would have to kill by chance. And Mona was amazed by his deductions, and Ron saw that his friend improved a lot, while the girl dressed like a banana added more mystery because she said Julie drank the cup from the other side, not the one in front of her. So everyone wondered how the killer made her drink that cup, and Totemaru finished his questions, but thought if the killer used a specific trick. So Ron handed Totemaru his mobile and told him to review the photos on social media of Julie, and the photos Mona took, and Totemaru acted like an idea came to him suddenly, and Mona tried to get the photos quickly, and most photos were of Totemaru, but there was a photo of the latte Julie drank, and Ron noticed something distinctive, so Totemaru tried to solve it, but he was very tense, and Ron brought him a hot towel to relieve him, but it was very big, and the cafe logo showed on it, so Ron told him that was the key, and started doing his cool guy pose, and Totemaru saw that, and understood they solved the case, so Mona was surprised, and Totemaru ran to check from Mona that she hid anything in the kitchen that could be used as a murder weapon, because there was a possibility of a second crime, but he was thinking now that the criminal was the one in danger because of Ron, so Totemaru was ready to reveal the truth and started explaining that the criminal knew Julie would take the drink in the back, as Julie was always in the center of all her photos on social media, because she took photos in a way that drew attention to herself, so they knew it was clear which cup she would choose, as the criminal touched the cups that had poison with her finger to make them less attractive in photos, except the cup with poison, and this happened in the short time the drinks were being loaded onto the table, and they had a photo as proof. So Totemaru asked Hayami about the eyes that were not right in the latte, and said she was the only one who could have done that. So Hayami collapsed and confessed everything, as Julie always had to be the center of attention, and Hayami could not take it anymore, and Julie stole her boyfriend from her. So Totemaru was about to make her understand that taking someone's life was never a right solution, but Ron had a different way to teach her a lesson, and asked Hayami to hit her head herself as he did his mental work, and again ordered her to hit her head. So Mona did not understand what he was saying, but Hayami complied, and was about to hit her face on something sharp, but Totemaru acted quickly and stopped her with a coffee bag. So Ron returned to his nature immediately, and thanked Totemaru instantly, while Mona did not believe this talk, but was very happy with her hero's actions, and Totemaru apologized to her that he broke her recorder by mistake, but she did not care, because she saw Totemaru working, and through him understood that the great detective did not just solve cases with magic, but solve them seriously and with strength, so her respect for Totemaru increased very much, and she hoped they would work together in the future, and Totemaru agreed, and Ron surprised them that he also agreed, as his latte had a hidden message saying he was happy they added the journalist as a strong ally, as Ron always kept the atmosphere nice and offered to bring them food, but Totemaru said the cafe usually did not do that, so Ron told Totemaru he must spoil Mona with some food from his kitchen, and these people were out of control, but Mona was happy with their actions. And after a while, Mofu brought Ron some analysis results, and showed him that the pressure he exerted on criminals was not something innate from his childhood, and she did not know the reason, and suggested he do more tests at this research station, while Amamiya told Totemaru he would help another station, and Kawasemi would be there too, so she wanted Totemaru to watch him, although she called him a failure, and told him since he lost his partner, cases were not being solved. So Totemaru thought there was a certain relationship between them, and assumed she cared about him inside, but Amamiya proved the opposite, as she herself wanted Kawasemi to fail more, so she could be the supervisor instead of him. And while they were going to the other station, Totemaru wondered why Ron was coming with them, as Amamiya sent Totemaru just to see how much he failed, and there was no big case or anything, so Ron said a case might appear, but Totemaru assumed Ron was actually worried about Kawasemi, so Ron laughed while studying his feelings, as John told Totemaru before that Ron never let anyone get close to him, so Totemaru asked him if he had any friends, and Ron revealed he had no friends, but understood that Totemaru was his friend, so Totemaru was pleased and thought Ron really started to change, and when the train stopped, Ron surprised them and said they would split up because he had work, so Totemaru knew that. Ron was not at the station and found him in the streets yelling at someone for not being perfect, and this person, Totemaru realized, was Kawasemi telling him to calm down because he was undercover, and the leader was named Kimo, but Kawasemi left his tweezers, and it became clear to Totemaru that this man was not good at all, so Kawasemi spoke with Totemaru, but knew that Amamiya sent him to verify the extent of his collapse. So Totemaru was shocked he knew, and Kawasemi told Totemaru to inform his boss he was in the worst stage of depression, and explained that the incident with his partner did not affect him much. But the problem was, he did not see things like before, so Kawasemi accompanied Totemaru to get some souvenirs engineers and found a sign warning people about the crazy chameleon, a random attacker hitting students with something, like a wrench, and taking only mobile phones, and his appearance changed every time, as victims said the criminal could be a school child, or a tall man about 2 meters, or an elegant and thin employee. So Totemaru ran after the attacker, and Ron watched the victim and called for backup, while the attacker hit a girl, and when there was nowhere to escape, he entered a shop. So Totemaru arrested everyone in the shop, but could not know who the culprit was because he removed the hoodie, and Kawasemi discovered the victim died. So the matter became a murder crime, and Totemaru explained the culprit must be inside the shop because the emergency door was blocked completely, and the only exit was the front entrance. So the crazy chameleon thief was among them, and Kawasemi said he would see all suspects, and everyone was ready to see the power of his eye. Kawasemi started as usual, but the surprise was he saw nothing. So Totemaru then took a call from Ron, and Ron showed his genius and explained the matter was not a disguise trick, and asked Totemaru why the criminal appeared different every time, and Totemaru did not understand. So Ron decided to explain immediately in the shop, as the police said there were no cameras there according to the angle of the blow, and decided the attacker must be 5 feet tall or 6. So Totemaru confirmed the man in the red hoodie was that tall, and they managed to identify 3 suspects. So Kawasemi tried to narrow the field more with his eyes, but failed again since they had information on all the suspects. So they let them leave. So now Kawasemi was ashamed of what he had become and thought he did not deserve the title of Hawkeye, when suddenly Ron arrived, but was arrested because he was a suspect, as Kawasemi thought he was the puppet master. But Ron revealed that today he was known. As the short-sighted Ron and Kawasemi reminded them he understood and asked for Ron's help. So Totemaru was amazed because it was clear that he understood. Ron solved the hand collector case, and Ron started investigating immediately and asked why the victim was wearing a suit if he was a university student. So Kawasemi assumed he was looking for work because the other victims were also wearing suits. But Ron corrected and said that all victims were wearing suits, and that was the puzzle that would solve the case. Then said that the only way the attacker's appearance changed every time was that all the victims lied, and everyone wondered why they were lying. But Ron assumed that was because their conscience was not clear. So Kawasemi learned from him, and Ron planned to show him the rest. But Kawasemi said he could not, so Ron insisted and decided to upset him if he did not solve it. Then Ron took the Hawkeye tweezers of Kawasemi and started pointing out all his flaws, and reminded him that his performance affected his old partner because he valued him highly. So Ron upset Kawasemi more, and Kawasemi got very annoyed and stopped trying to tire himself out much and stopped holding back. So Kawasemi showed his power with the Hawkeye and pointed to all the price tags still on Ron's suit, and his shoes were gross and his tie was all wrong, and could not believe Ron dressed like that, and thought if he did that on purpose to reconcile Kawasemi. So Ron said that Kawasemi was fine now and asked him to direct the Hawkeye at the suspects. So Kawasemi returned to his old self and started asking how the suspect knocked his elbow into the random woman, and deduced that the man actually did not hit her, and the criminal was in reality looking at his watch, and there was a sign saying entry forbidden at specific times. So he thought the road was empty, but the road was closed, so he had to hide in the shop, and the only way that the criminal could make this mistake was that his watch was broken and showing the wrong time. So among the 3 suspects, only one was wearing a broken watch. So Kawasemi determined he was the criminal, and they tried to contact the criminal. But the stupid police discovered that all information he gave them was fake. But Kawasemi was not worried because they did not find the mobile of the victim on any suspect, so it must be in the shop. And they found the man in the red hoodie, but still the mobile was missing. So Ron revealed they actually saw the mobile and said something strange, that he was in the middle of the call. And Totemaru did not understand what he was talking about. But Kawasemi understood then. At night, the criminal returned to the crime scene to get the mobile, which was on a statue, and the police came out suddenly, and Kawasemi said he was arrested. So the man was taken, and Kawasemi fixed Ron's tie, and that meant he returned to his old self. On the way back, Totemaru informed Ron that the crazy chameleon was arrested, and Ron revealed that the work he went to do was a research center, and explained to Totemaru that he was doing tests, and depending on the result, he could alleviate his symptoms. So Totemaru wanted to celebrate the hope of curing his illness, but felt something was not right. And after that, Ron asked Totemaru if he should start investigating the missing Spitz family case. So Totemaru said that Spitz helped them in cases, so they must help him, and Ron agreed and told Totemaru to inform Spitz. But Totemaru was shocked when Ron told him the reason was that Spitz was tracking him now, and the two went to Ron's apartment, and Totemaru could not believe he had furniture. Now, as Ron readied the apartment so they could bring clients there, and the first one to come was Spitz, and Ron explained that Spitz was acting a little strange because he asked him for something, and he would bring him the file of the bloody training incident from Blue before starting the investigation, as Ron took Scotland Yard files about the case. But an important part was removed, and he wanted Spitz to access Blue to get the full file. So Totemaru thought he wanted to prove his innocence, but Ron was interested in something else, as Mofu told him that the compulsion to kill criminals might be due to medical intervention, and there were 3 hours he did not remember during his treatment after the incident, and his files were also missing. So the missing part might help him understand his compulsion, and also might reveal who stole 5 years of his life from him. So Ron told Spitz to bring the file, but Totemaru thought Ron had to look for his family. But Ron explained that chances of finding Spitz's family were very low, and they did not do charity work. So Totemaru defended Spitz, whom he called their friend, and Ron had planned this whole dialogue as Spitz burst in and thanked Totemaru and said sorry for delaying and accepted Ron's conditions. So Ron was ready to start the investigation and started preparing them to travel to Europe, but surprised them and said the investigation would start in Japan, an investigation to search for Spitz's brother began as Spitz's brother traveled a lot studying people's beliefs, and the first place they would check was a village called Yadoru, and while walking they saw a sign, but Ron asked everyone to be silent because he heard something, and they ran to a waterfall where a strange girl was standing looking at the waterfall next to a shrine when suddenly something flew without reason, and the man who threw it said it slipped from his hand and apologized and told them to be careful. So they approached and found the village mayor in the middle of an argument, and the mayor recognized Spitz and explained that they were fighting over building a dam as a government official demanded everyone to leave the village, while the villagers said that someone named Yagami would not allow the dam to be built, and that was his image in the shrine, as Yagami appeared to be a night snake god protecting the village for a long time. And another man named Mori studied folklore and explained he came to investigate Yagami, while the mayor tried to calm the people, and the government official just wanted to survey the area, but the villagers were not stupid and knew if he did that, the dam would be approved, and then they would all end up at the bottom of the dam. And the official was very rude and told the mayor to stop teaching people about fake gods and teach them manners instead, and said he would survey tomorrow and sue them if they interfered. So the villagers got very angry. But the mayor sent the people back to their homes and told them the official would stay in the guest hut, and invited Spitz and his friends to stay with him for the night. Then the weather became rainy, and the mayor called it Yagami's anger and said sometimes even the god could not hold his anger. And the girl from the waterfall arrived, and Spitz recognized her as Ma, the mayor's granddaughter, and she was happy to know that Spitz would stay with them for a while. And at dinner, Spitz showed photos of his brother from the day he disappeared, and they were asking the villagers about Yagami's legends. Then they slept in the guest hut, and when Spitz woke up in the morning, he found his brother disappeared, and no one saw him again. So the police and villagers searched the mountains, but there was no sign he left the village, as if he disappeared suddenly. Then the subject changed when Ron revealed his dinner covered in black sugar syrup, and Totemaru noticed that they could see the guest hut from their place, but were shocked when they saw a huge snake looking at them as if it was wrapped around someone. So they ran to see, and when they arrived at the only entrance, Ron stopped them as the mud was wet from the rain, and there were no footprints, so no one entered or exited. Then they entered, and the place was completely empty, and it was as if what they saw disappeared completely. Then the police arrived in the morning and found the official's body at the waterfall with bruises on his neck resembling snake scales, and it was determined the cause of death was head trauma from falling into the basin, and there were no weapons, and the marks on his neck looked like scales but were determined to be from a rope. So Ron did what he always did and knelt to avenge the victim, and asked the victim to talk to him when the mayor arrived and said the snake god Yagami did this, while Totemaru noticed there was no sign of entry to the hut. But the mayor said that Yagami had divine power and could do that easily. Then Ma arrived crying and reminded the mayor that strangers were not allowed to approach the waterfall, but the mayor told them he allowed it and revealed they were detectives. So Totemaru wondered who Ron was, and Spitz intervened and said he was his friend, and they collected rare wrapping paper together. Then Ron asked Ma about the shrine, and she said she was leaving an offering for Yagami, which was a tradition for the whole village to thank their god. So Ron wondered if they really believed in Yagami, and Ma did not like the question and said Yagami existed always and would continue, and the mayor agreed and said that the divine punishment of the official was proof of Yagami's existence. And Totemaru was shocked when he saw the villagers appear, and the angry crowd agreed with the mayor. Ron said that when faith was linked to exclusion, sometimes it appeared like a state of mass hysteria, and was wondering what made them believe so strongly. And suddenly Mori came out from the bushes and said he studied an infinite number of gods around the world, but Yagami was unique as his legend was still alive, and there were reports of his power of invisibility, and revealed that there was a plan to build a dam 15 years ago. But when the time for construction came, all the heavy machinery disappeared, and Spitz's brother also disappeared 11 years ago. And Mori said that during his stay in the village, it was impossible not to feel Yagami's power, as he once fell from the mountain and lost consciousness. And when he woke up, he found himself at the base of the mountain instead of above it. And this man said he was very interested in what happened and thought of living in the village. So Ron asked where he was when it rained yesterday, and he said he was in the shrine, and the shrine had a large snake skin, and also samples of eyes and fangs, and also some manuscripts and old scrolls explaining Yagami's legend, and discovered the place was locked for some reason. So he returned to the house where he lived. Then Spitz felt something was wrong with their words, so Totemaru suggested they arrange the events over dinner, as they saw the snake wrapped around someone in the hut, and there were no footprints, and all windows had bars, so no one entered. But they heard a loud noise, so Spitz wondered and said maybe it was the sound of Yagami as he moved. And Ron liked legends like anyone else, but was sure there must be another explanation. So the two men returned inside the hut, and Totemaru wondered how the snake disappeared, as he was sure they saw it and thought there might be a hidden door. But the police told them that they checked the whole place, and the dust on the ceiling did not move, and there were no signs of anyone above, and the walls and bars were strong and could not be removed. And also, there were no places to hide underground. But they found something strange and were very shocked, as they found some of Ron's black sugar syrup, and Ron explained it was in his mouth when they ran to the hut and he lost control of it. So Totemaru apologized to the policeman for staining the mat with the syrup and said it was a mistake, which meant there were no clues. And Spitz was shocked and said that Yagami truly existed and remembered his brother, and said he would have been helpless before the god. Then Spitz was surprised and said he saw the big white snake in the river, so they went to look but did not find it, while Ron started noticing something and looked around in the hut. Then asked about the location of the syrup, so a policeman explained to them that they replaced the mat after flipping it, so the syrup remained in its current place. And Ron made a move as if he saw the truth, and Totemaru understood that Ron solved the case, and as usual, Ron would give himself the credit. But Ron did the hero pose and said living legends were made by living people. So Totemaru gathered everyone and explained everything in detail, as Ron left some black syrup, and when they found the bottle the next day, it was at a distance from the place where the syrup fell, and Spitz said he saw the snake in the river, and when they checked, they found a stone tied with a rope. So Ron surprised everyone and said what happened was a trick, as the Yagami they saw at night was on a painted scroll fixed to a mat, and the criminal lifted the mat and fixed the scroll on it and used the rope to secure it, and the end of the rope was locked in the door and the other tied to a stone outside the window. So as soon as they opened the door, the rope was released and the stone fell into the river, and the noise they heard was just the mat returning to the ground. And the reason the bottle moved away from that place was that the criminal lifted the mat to place the scroll, and the criminal did not want the villagers accused of murder, so planned it in a way that made it impossible for anyone else to see it. And for this trick to succeed, he needed someone to see everything, and his room had a good view of the hut, and the person who took him to the room was the mayor, so everyone was shocked. But the mayor said the weapon was not found yet, and Totemaru started to worry because this part was very important. But Ron helped him and reminded him that the rope outside the shrine was tied differently than the previous day. So Totemaru said this was the weapon, and forensics would find skin cells of the victim and the mayor. So the villagers were shocked, and Ma tried to defend her grandfather, but the mayor stopped her and confessed everything, as he hated the official because he wanted to build a dam, so he took the official and killed him. But Totemaru knew something else and told the old man to give another reason before revealing what he was hiding. And Ron used his power and ordered the mayor to sit in the river, so the man prepared to jump, and everyone was watching. But Totemaru saved him at the right moment, so everyone was relieved, and Totemaru told the grandfather not to worry, but the ground under their feet broke, so Spitz ran to his friend while Totemaru was barely holding the edge with the old man. And Ron regained consciousness and saw a mysterious person coming out of the forest and threw a rope, so Ron ran to help Totemaru and held him with the rope, and the grandfather wished Ma happiness and was taken to live the rest of his days in prison. And when they returned to the village, Ron asked someone following them to come out, and they discovered it was Spitz's brother, and Totemaru revealed they knew he was there. since. Mori told him about what happened in the mountain, and they decided someone living in the mountain saved him. And when Ma was at the shrine, she had an insulated bag, so they deduced she was leaving food for someone in the mountain. And Ma was surprised when she saw Spitz, as if she mistook him for his brother. And Spitz's brother was happy that Spitz made smart friends, but Spitz wanted answers, as 15 years ago, the mayor told Spitz's brother about the dam, so they suggested using the legend of Yagami as a trick, and he was joking. But when he returned to his town, he discovered that the mayor hid the heavy machinery in the mountains. And after 4 years, Spitz's brother's life changed completely, and he learned something that made a certain organization come after him. So Spitz wanted to know the organization's name, but his brother told him he could not tell him for any reason, as if he said they would be in great danger. So after escaping those pursuing him, he decided to disappear and exploited the fact that the village did not know he was there to stop the dam construction, and hid in the mountains, and the villagers acted like they did not see him. But unfortunately, Spitz's brother blamed the mayor, and the official discovered he was hiding himself in the mountains and asked for money in exchange for keeping the secret, and his demands were increasing, so the mayor decided to act like a professional killer. So Spitz's brother felt guilty and asked Totemaru to arrest him, and everyone objected, but he felt he was responsible. So Ron intervened and said maybe the grandfather was protecting Ma's feelings towards Spitz's brother, and this was the first time. He chose that for him, and Ron went home so he would not get wet, and Totemaru said the case was resolved and they would leave it at that, so the lovers could finally be happy, and Spitz was grateful to his friend. And after a while, Spitz infiltrated Blue, wanting to return the favor to Ron, but unfortunately was discovered immediately by the director, who knew what he wanted, and he was ready to accept any punishment. And that was exactly what the director wanted to hear. And Spitz was shocked when she told him she wanted a request from him. Then the boys gathered in Ron's apartment, but he was very tense, waiting to see if Spitz brought the file or not. And unfortunately, Spitz said that the file did not exist, but revealed that the director actually sent him an important message on a tablet, but it would disappear after opening it, and the message was encrypted and asked for a password made of information personal about Ron and his partner. And this made them understand the director wanted them to hear the message too. Then he read it out loud, and the message said the situation was very dangerous, as the truth behind the bloody training incident was deleted from police files and Blue files too, and they discovered the bloodstains were not his nor the victims, and no one could solve the closed room case. So it was hard to clear Ron and also the death of John, and the mark found at the scene made the director realize something, that the incident 5 years ago was committed by a specific organization, and Ron was accused wrongly, as the mark that appeared during treatment was likely caused at the same time as his illness that makes him kill criminals. So the boys were shocked when she said that the organization behind all this was House of M, the most notorious criminal family in history, who say that any crime they commit will never be solved. And the message continued and revealed there was a spy from House of M inside Blue, so they must be very careful. And the director was excited for the day Ron could prove his innocence, so she could return his detective license, as the director was very close to his parents, and happy he made good friends and asked them to look after Ron and be careful. So Totemaru got angry and wanted to go confront House of M, but Spitz warned him that anyone who tried to solve their cases died in mysterious ways. So Totemaru could not believe there was such a dangerous group and started worrying about his friend, and the moment became very tense. But Ron shocked everyone and said he was very excited and could not stop his trembling, and said as long as they continued solving cases, they would appear again, and when the time came, he would not let them escape, and promised to bring them to light. While elsewhere we see how evil House of M is, as the leader receives a report that one of the members will have a child and does not want to be a criminal anymore. So the leader agreed it was better to finish this member, but did not want the child to come for revenge after 15 years, so ordered that his whole family be eliminated. While another member named Winter asked why they let the half-blood live, and his big brother is the leader and knew Winter was talking about Ron, and the reason Ron is coming is part of the family and has the same blood they have. But Winter was upset because of something that happened to Alice. So the leader explained that only those who survive from the family are superior, and the leader asked if Ron deserved to be their brother, and that was what they were trying to find out. So Winter got very angry and thought that Ron had Sherlock's blood and he would never consider him his brother. So the leader answered him about Alice and said despair was the only way to reach what they wanted, as House of M's crimes were ruined long ago because of Sherlock Holmes and his descendants, and Ron Kamonohashi carries his blood, so they must prevent him from being a detective and must give him despair until he despairs of his deductions completely. And the big leader named Milo Moriarty said to Winter that he had a ticket to Japan waiting, and and Winter was tasked to go after Spitz, and Ron and Milo told him to give a terrifying taste of House of Moriarty. And thus ends our story today. So before we end our story, do not forget to like, share, and comment on the video, because that is what encourages us to continue. And if you are new to our channel, subscribe and activate the bell button to receive everything new, and see you later.